The Iceman, Confessions of a Mafia Contract Killer by Phillip Carlo. This book is about Richard Kuklinski, the so-called Mafia hitman. It's based on 240 hours of one-on-one interviews at Trenton State Prison. Apparently, Kuklinski killed over 100 people for pleasure and for money. He also says that he worked for mob families as well. He claims these were special hits that only someone with his special skills could do. This is a lie because the Mafia did their own hits. And there were many men in the Mafia who loved to kill. Why would they hire somebody like Richard, who supposedly has these special skills, to commit crimes that they could do themselves? I don't buy that. There's a lot of fiction in this book. I believe Kuklinski was a wife beater. He was a stalker, he was a killer, and he also distributed porn. But he was not a homicide superstar for the mob. The author makes these claims and uses a lot of verbiage to describe Richard as this super spy or something. I don't know, but Richard wasn't. He wasn't any of those things. Now, he was a killer, and I'll get to that later, but he wasn't a mob killer. That's just a fact. Though the author tried to make Kuklinski a sort of sympathetic anti-hero character, I still didn't like the guy. He was a bully and a killer, obviously. He was a degenerate gambler, an alcoholic, and a liar. He was a liar. The guy lied a lot. In this video, I'm going to discuss the truth and the fiction of this book. Since I wasn't there, I can't say exactly what was true or false. All I can say is that what I've read in other Mafia books and other interviews I've seen with other Mafia guys, nobody ever heard of the guy. These were many different crews in Gambino family and other Mafia families never heard of Richard Kuklinski. Now, they would have if he were really connected to the mob. And informants never heard of Richard. There's no way he could have hid his existence. It's just not possible. Well, I will talk about the book now. So Richard Kuklinski was born on April 11th, 1955 in New Jersey. His father, Stanley, was a psychopath. He constantly beat Richard and his brother, Florian. Stanley beat Florian to death in front of Richard and his mother. And they were told to tell everyone that Florian was hit by a car and died that way. One of Richard's biggest regrets in life was not killing his father. When Richard was a kid, he was beaten by neighborhood bullies. He was an outcast and he was constantly made fun of. Even the Catholic Church was cruel to him. He went to Catholic school and he said that the priests and the nuns were more evil than Stanley, than his own dad. I mean, that's pretty bad. And he said that the priests were mean-spirited men who were addicted to alcohol and made sexual advances towards Richard and other boys. Richard turned his rage towards animals. So he would capture stray dogs and cats and torture them. He tied two cats' tails together and then hung them on a clothesline and watched them rip each other apart. And he threw cats down an incinerator. He enjoyed their screams. He loved hearing the cats scream in agony. He'd hunt down dogs and he'd set them on fire with gasoline just to watch them run around in flames. This is another reason I don't like this guy. And I know psychopaths torture animals and stuff like that, but if this is true, it just gives me one more reason to hate this guy, honestly. You know, what can I say? The guy, you know, he was abused, so he abused others. He abused animals and so forth. You know, and that seems to happen. Richard's mom was Anna Kuklinski, and she was religious but evil. I always say that she was religious in name only, because she beat Richard with anything she could find. You know, like spoons and hairbrushes, pots and pans. It didn't matter. One time Richard stole some food for the family, and it was just him and his brother and mother. I think he has another brother, or had another brother, and so he had to steal food for these guys. You know, Florian was killed by the father, but there was another brother as well. So anyway, after he steals his food to bring home for the family, his mother punches him so hard it knocks him out cold. And yeah, some religious lady she is. And also, one time he came home from school and caught her having sex with a neighbor guy. And so, you know, that proves to him that she was just as wicked as his father. According to Richard, his first kill was one of his worst enemy bullies named Charlie Lane. Charlie was the leader of a group of project bullies. The guy was relentless. One time, Richard caught him alone and killed him and dumped his body in South Jersey. And after this, nobody messed with Richard again. But the things that Charlie and his friends did to Richard, you know, kind of makes you not feel sympathetic towards this guy. Richard created his own gang of bullies eventually, and they were called the Coming Up Roses. I think that's kind of a silly name for a gang, but that's just me. After his gang got a reputation for being a rough group of guys, they attracted the attention of the Mafia. He and his gang were sending people to the hospital with gaping knife wounds, cracked heads, broken bones, and so forth. Apparently, Carmine Genovese, a made man in the De Cavalcante crime family, paid Richard and his gang to kill someone for $500 each. Again, I don't believe that. Why would the Mafia pay a group of outsiders, and I think they were teenagers, why would he pay them to commit a murder that the Mafia could do themselves? And what if one of those teenagers got busted and they snitch and then they bring down the whole crime family? You know what I mean? Richard claims to have killed bums and people he got into arguments with as well. He called these people throwaway people, as if they just didn't mean anything. He said he enjoyed seeing the lights go out. He enjoyed killing up close and personal. He always wanted the last image they had to see was his face. He didn't kill women and children, and he hated rapists. He hated all sexual predators, which I totally agree with. He did cut off his first wife's nipples for cheating on him. He didn't kill her, so apparently torture was acceptable in his eyes. And as I will discuss his second wife, you'll understand where I'm coming from. Torture didn't seem to be such a bad thing for him. As long as he didn't kill women and children, he could just torture them torture them mentally or even physically. Richard met his second wife, Barbara, while working at a trucking company. And I believe that he did, I do believe he worked at a trucking company. And I do believe he met Barbara there, because she never said anything to refute that. But the whole idea of being in a mob, obviously I don't buy that. She was only 18, and Richard started talking to her at the soda machine. And her boss noticed this, and he went over to Barbara like a concerned parent and told her, stay away from that guy. You're a nice girl. This guy, he's a lug. He's married. He's got a kid or two. Stay away from that guy. And the boss even confronted Richard and told him to stay away from Barbara. She's too young. She's too innocent. She's not your type. But Richard just quit his job right then and there. And then Richard lied to Barbara and told her that he was fired for talking to her. And so she felt sorry for him. And she asked him out for a coffee. And in her words, she said, "This was the worst mistake I ever made. I should have run for the hills, but instead I walked outside like a lamb to the slaughter." The author said she was as innocent as a wide-eyed young fawn suddenly caught in the oncoming headlights of a speeding car driven by the devil himself. I guess that's probably true. When Richard met Barbara's family, he saw how much they loved each other, and he wanted to be part of that because he'd never known that kind of love before. His experience with women were just bar women. And he didn't really have much of a sexual appetite anyway. He preferred killing over sex, so it seemed. And Richard was instantly taken by Barbara. He thought she was a perfect woman. But she didn't have romantic designs on him because he was married. So he had to get divorced so that they could be together. And after taking her virginity, he started to behave stalkerishly, like a stalker. No matter where she was, he was there. He didn't let her go out with friends. She was just his only, his possession. She was trapped. And so she said she, thought she might want to date other guys. And he stabbed her in the back. Now, he didn't kill her or anything like that. He just stabbed her in the back with a hunting knife and told her that if she ever left him, he would kill her entire family in front of her and then kill her. That's what he said. Richard claims to have used several methods for killing. He said he used bats, tire irons, ropes, wires, knives, guns, bows and arrows, crossbows, I think too, ice picks, screwdrivers, poison, explosives, and his hands. And speaking of poison, he really liked cyanide a lot. He claims to have been paid by Roy DeMeo to do special jobs. Roy DeMeo was a mobster in the Gambino crime family. DeMeo was known for being a ruthless killer. Now, why would he pay Richard to do these so-called special jobs when DeMeo loved to kill? And he had like a restaurant or somewhere, and in the back, I think it was, they used to chop up bodies to get rid of them. Why would he hire Richard? These mob guys were all greedy, and they didn't just pass around their wealth to some guy, especially him. Richard was Polish. He wasn't Italian or Sicilian. What the hell? Why would they even bother with that guy? Anyway, so Richard made the outrageous claim that he killed Jimmy Hoffa. He also claimed to have killed Paul Castellano, who was a mob boss for the Gambino family. The hit was actually planned out and executed by John Gotti and Sammy the Bull Gravano. Richard had nothing to do with that. Richard also claims to have fed some of his victims to rats. He said that he filmed this and gave the tapes to his clients. Now, I don't know. I don't even know, especially in the part of Pennsylvania, I think it was, where he supposedly did this. I don't even know if rats would even eat people there. And he supposedly had this cave where he would put people there, and the rats would just come running up, and they would eat the person. He would have this all on video. He would show one of his Mafia clients, and they would just love it and laugh. And I don't even know. I mean, do the tapes exist? There should be copies, right? But I've never heard of anything like that. And I'm sure that the police couldn't corroborate any of this because shouldn't there be skeletons at the cave and so forth? You know what I mean? Now, eventually, Richard created his own crew of criminals. They committed burglaries. He killed all of these guys. And I think he killed like 5 or something like that. But he only got charged with killing 4. Because the 5th guy, there's something to do with the evidence. I don't know what it was. But how he eventually got caught was he met this undercover cop. And the cop claimed to be part of the Mafia. And he asked Richard if he would kill for money. And Richard said, yeah, sure, I'll kill for money. And so this is what led to his arrest. And eventually, he got the attention of HBO. You know, HBO is in the business of entertainment, and he was interviewed extensively, and that's what this book is all about. And they became known as the Iceman tapes. And these are entertaining, I have to say that. And when I first saw them many years ago, I thought this was true. You know, I thought, wow, this guy is completely honest. And it's partially true. I'm not saying everything Richard said was false, because I do believe he killed 5 people. I don't believe he killed 100, and I don't believe he worked for the Mafia. But I do believe he was a killer. He was a wife beater. You know, he caused all kinds of misery in his family. But I don't believe all the Mafia stuff, that's all. So he gave these interviews, and I think he gave like 3 separate interviews, but he eventually developed some sort of disease and he died. Now, Richard could have been possibly connected with the Mafia through his porn business. That's a possibility, but I still don't believe he killed for the Mafia. Now, he could have known a few guys, but I don't think he ever murdered for them because they do that themselves. Why would they need this guy? I mean, come on. It makes the Mafia look bad, you know? Well, anyway, that's all I got. Talk to you later. Bye.